Yo, what's going on guys? Arekkz here, welcome back to another video for Monster Hunter World Iceborne, and in this one we're talking about Alatreon. I'm not gonna lie, this fight took me a lot longer than I originally anticipated. However, we have since nailed the strategy, got a clear understanding of the mechanics, and successfully slain the fearsome beast. So I'd say I'm in a good position now to put together some handy tips for those of you that are still having troubles with the fight. Of course, if you do find this helpful, then a like would be super appreciated, and let me know in the comments down below how you're getting on with this fight and whether you've completed it yourself or not. Also, be sure to keep it locked and turn on notifications as we've got more videos coming your way very soon. Anyway, on to the fight. So, Alatreon, one of the fearsome black dragons. He doesn't mess around. It's a challenging fight, I mean it's designed to be, but in truth, part of the challenge does come down to a rather simple yet equally annoying elemental DPS check. I'm not personally a fan of mechanics like this, honestly I feel like they just add artificial difficulty, but ultimately these are the cards we've been dealt, so there's no point complaining, we just gotta do what hunters do best and get on with the job. So, what do you need to know? Well, first things first, the Alatreon fight revolves around a cycle. For those of you that have fought Alatreon in previous games, you'll know it has command over the elements, and that's true in Iceborne too. In this game, while Alatreon can use a number of elements in its attacks, its actual form revolves around just fire, dragon, and ice, or as the game calls it, fire active, dragon active, and ice active. Alatreon will begin the fight in either fire or ice form, depending on the quest, more on that in a moment, and then as you fight it will transition into dragon form, which you can then see kind of like an interim state before it then switches to the opposing element, either fire or ice, at which point it will then perform its incredibly powerful Eschaton Judgment super move. This is basically the make or break for most people, since if you haven't done enough elemental damage, you're going to die. Meanwhile, if you have, you'll be able to heal through it. It's still going to damage you, you still need to be prepared for it, and you still need to be ready to heal, but basically you can survive it. So top level, the flow revolves around you dealing enough elemental damage to Alatreon to weaken its Eschaton Judgment so that when it does, you can then survive and continue the fight. So, let's break down the core mechanics. First things first, the quests. The first time you fight Alatreon, it will be in the Special Assignments tab under a quest called Blazing Black Twilight. In this quest, Alatreon will always begin in fire active mode. Once you complete the special assignment, you'll then be able to face Alatreon in event quests. These quests will rotate. If the event quest is called Evening Star, Alatreon will again begin in fire active mode. Meanwhile, if the quest is called Death Star, it will begin in ice active. This is very important information because it's going to influence what you take into the fight. When Alatreon is in fire active mode, it is weakest to ice, 3-star weakness, followed by a 2-star weakness to water, and then 1-star to everything else except fire, which at this point it's immune to. When it's in ice active mode, it's 3-star weak to fire, 2-star weak to thunder, and 1-star weak to everything else bar ice, which again it's immune to. Meanwhile, when it's in Dragon active mode, it's 2-star weak to Dragon and 1-star weak to everything else. Now, the reason this information is important is because this entire fight revolves around an elemental DPS check. Basically, can you do enough elemental damage in time in order to continue? And this is not just a regular DPS check, this is specifically elemental. In other words, you can't brute force your way through this fight, you can't sleep bomb your way through, or LBG sticky or slicing your way to victory, you are forced to use elements. Annoying, yes, especially for the raw damage players out there, but again, these are the cards we've been dealt. See, when you begin the fight, you want to dish out as much elemental damage to Alatreon as possible. In doing so, you're going to then make it flinch, and you'll receive a very specific prompt from the handler saying, "Well done, you're doing a good job at suppressing Alatreon's element." Something like that.
You're doing a good job containing Alatreon's power.
This is important because this is the cue that you have weakened the Eschaton Judgment move to the point where you are going to be able to survive it. As the fight progresses, Alatreon will then switch from its starting element into Dragon. Dragon is important because it's the only time you can break Alatreon's horns. This is also your last attempt to suppress the element too. While it's possible, during the starting phase, to suppress the element, if you haven't dealt enough damage, chances are you'll still need to finish this during the dragon phase, which is still fine. However, the focus now should ideally be on the horns. See, if you successfully break Alatreon's horns, you will stop it from switching to the opposing element. In other words, if it started in fire, you will stop it from ever being able to go to ice. And if it started in ice, you'll stop it from going to fire. This is especially important because if you came in with, say, an ice weapon and you're fighting fire, you ideally don't want it to go to ice because then you'll be doing no elemental damage. And in this quest, you cannot use a Farcaster, so the only way back to camp is well, to die. So, to repeat that and make it super easy to follow, Alatreon begins in one element, either ice or fire, depending on the quest. You must deal as much elemental damage as possible to flinch it, and get the prompt to say that you suppressed the elements. This can be done in both the starting element phase and the dragon phase. However, in the dragon phase, you should also aim to break the horns. The horns have quite a low threshold, and honestly they are quite easy to break. The best way to do this is typically to clutch claw onto Alatreon's head and yeet it into a wall. Knock him down, and then everyone on the team should pile onto his head and do as much damage as possible, and you should break them pretty easily. But keep in mind, again, the horns can only be broken in the dragon phase. Assuming you've done all this, Alatreon will then begin the Eschaton Judgment move. The audio will change, he'll begin charging, and this is where you need to be ready. Ensure you are fully healed, and this is where I'd strongly advise bringing an Astera Jerky. As soon as you begin taking damage, eat a jerky. This should then offset the damage being dealt to you, and you can then consume a second one should you need to jump back up to full health. Keep in mind, if Alatreon gets to this move and you have not suppressed the element, I'm sorry to say it, but you are dead. Other options, of course, also include a well-timed max potion, but honestly, during this phase, a well-timed Astera Jerky just works perfectly. Keep in mind again that you do still need to be ready to heal. Even if you weakened it, you are still going to take damage, and you can still die if you don't heal, but the difference here is that you can survive it. Now, following this Eschaton Judgment, if you broke the horn, Alatreon will then revert to its starting element. However, if you did not break the horn, it will then switch. This is where things can get tricky, since if you went in again with, say, an ice weapon, didn't break the horn, and now it's ice, for this phase you'll be doing no elemental damage, which means you essentially have to wait till the dragon phase to suppress the element, making things pretty tight. Not impossible, but much tighter. However, assuming you've done everything right, then that's basically the cycle. You then typically repeat this cycle 2 to 3 times until Alatreon is dead, and that's it. So what advice can I offer? Well, first things first, do not sleep on the elemental weaknesses. While it is technically possible to get by with something like Dragon, since it's viable throughout, it is noticeably easier if you use the strongest elemental weakness, especially if your set is not optimal. So if the quest is fire active to begin with, going with ice. If it's ice active to begin with, going with fire. During the early phases, attacking the hind legs is much easier and safer, and then during the dragon phase, I would say bring your temporal mantle so that you can just wear it whilst attempting to clutch claw onto Alatreon's face. He throws you off quite a lot, so the mantle basically just makes this much easier. Additionally, when attempting to yeet him into the stage, there are a few raised rocks around the arena. This is where you can yeet him into. And for his moves, while they are powerful, they are quite clearly telegraphed, so it's actually quite easy to dodge them when you learn the patterns. This fight, additionally, is, as always, easier solo, since the threshold is not as high for flinching, so if you're struggling with randoms, I would recommend trying solo. But if you're running multiplayer, everybody must run elements, otherwise you're going to have a hard time. But that's really all there is to it. Determine what the starting element is, match that with the appropriate weakness, deal a ton of elemental damage to suppress the element and weaken the judgment. Then break the horn to stop it from switching to the opposing element, rinse and repeat. It's tough at first, but once you get the flow down, it's actually not so bad. Also, one final tip. I mentioned that the element changes depending on the quest. One thing to note, the quest rotation is actually different from person to person. So for example, today, for me, the quest is Evening Star, the ice active quest. Meanwhile, Paradise Central, his is Death Star, the fire active quest. So if you have a preference, chat to your friends or search online because they are actually both in rotation. Anyway, I hope that helps you guys. If you have any questions, by all means let me know in the comments down below. But otherwise, good luck and I'll catch you in the next one.
Alatreon's power.
Wow, you did it! We need to report to the guild immediately.
Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed that video. Don't forget, if you haven't already done so, you can join the Arekkz Gaming Discord. We've got an awesome community over there with so many different channels for you to chat loads of different topics and different games. I'm in there, the team's in there. If you guys want to chat with us, find people to play with, it's just in general a great place to be. And of course, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to turn on those notifications so you don't miss any of our future uploads.